Hello, princesses, and welcome back to Not Fit for Print Beauty with me, Rebecca. Today we have a video that I have been planning for a while and I'm pretty excited about. Today's video is the best eyeshadow palettes of 2020, a whole year's worth. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I will tell you that when I started in with this, for a bit I was worried. I thought this was gonna be a little bit of an onerous task because 12 months of eyeshadow palettes, when I love so many of them, how would I ever pick the best? So then I said to myself, we need some parameters here, some boundaries. And the minute I applied a little bit of, boundaries, everything just fell into place perfectly. So let me tell you how I did this. I chose my favorite brands. Some brands didn't make it in. And then within those brands, I made myself pick just one palette. If the brand does large and small, like quads and larger palettes, then I did one larger palette and one quad. I thought that was fair enough. And again, some brands didn't make it. Marc Jacobs, for instance, almost made it, but didn't. Tom Ford almost made it, but didn't. Dior almost made it, but didn't. So I tried to really keep the list to my all-time favorites, what I reach for again and again. And I worked on this list for a while. I'll tell you why. I didn't want to make a list and then make the video and then the next day go, oh, I forgot this, or oh, I should have changed this. I really kind of went back and forth with it and allowed myself to play with it and finagle it till I really got it to where I was comfortable with it. And I don't know if there's any out there who agree with me or not. I haven't watched any other lists and I'm wondering if I will then second guess myself, but I'm pretty confident with the list that I have here for us today. So let's take a look at what I have assembled, and then down below, I have links to all of them, but of course I also want to hear if you think I left anything out and if you agree or disagree, or if you would have maybe changed them up a little bit. Some of these are a little bit tough. Okay, let's start with Pat McGrath, because you know Pat McGrath is in here. I picked one of her larger mothership palettes and then one of her smaller palettes. That was okay within my rules. The larger palette, took a little bit of thinking, but you know what? I picked the Mothership 8 Divine Rose 2, not 1, but 2. Let me tell you why. I have fresh swatches, by the way. I self-harmed a little bit on these swatches. I did them all new, so I'm all like red armed now, but it's worth it. Okay, so the Mothership 8 Divine Rose is absolutely gorgeous. I just want you to look, when you look at the shades, at the kind of the breadth of shades that she has here and how different they are. I mean, we go from gold to a kind of ruddy red to a hot pink. And then of course, since it is a larger mothership palette, we also have those special shades. I really need to talk about this shade right here. It's like a trio, quadruple, macuple chrome. What color is that? Is it pink? Is it gold? Is it green? I think that this particular shade in Mothership 8 is my favorite eyeshadow shade of all time. To me, this is a flower. This is a rose. The petal, the stem, it's absolutely gorgeous. I am wearing this palette today on my eyes. Every time I wear this palette out, I notice that as people are speaking to me, they're trying to figure out this shade, because I always wear this shade when I wear this palette, and I'll notice them kind of trying to work out what color it is. I mean, this shade fascinates people, and this palette is gorgeous. Let's look at it on my arm. Since I self-harmed and did all these swatches, let's take a look at it. Look at how beautiful it is, and I don't know if that special shade, which will be next from last all the way to the right, really shows to its full effect like it does on the eyes, but it is an absolutely magnificent shade. I don't know another adjective that would work like that one. Now I also, within my rules that I made for myself, got to pick a smaller Pat McGrath palette, and for that one I picked one of her newer quads, and in fact I picked the Fleur Fantasia. Of the holiday palettes, I did a holiday palette review, which I should link below. This was one of my favorites as well that I recommended. It's just pretty. It's easy to make a nice look. You can get maybe 2 or 3 different looks even out of this palette. It's just very pretty and very wearable. And you kind of can't make a mistake with the Fleur Fantasia. And that I'm going to show you on my arm. I left Mothership 8 Divine Rose 2 on the arm. And you're going to see right now Fleur Fantasia over the top. Just kind of sitting over the top of it there, just so you can kind of compare those two. Such pretty palettes. And after a lot of painstaking thinking, I decided that for the year 2020, those are my 2 favorites that I allowed myself from Pat McGrath. Had I made my parameters bigger, I would have gotten a lot more in there, but I made myself narrow it down, and that's what I chose. Let's move on to Viseart, shall we? I was allowed 2 palettes from Viseart, 2, a bigger and a smaller, and I picked 2 of the newer palettes. No, not just because they're fresh in the mind. That doesn't hurt, but I really went back and looked, and these are actually my 2 favorites. The first larger palette is the Vizier Violet. You might not have guessed that because usually I don't choose purple, and here I am wearing purple. Usually I don't choose purple. This is a palette that changed how I feel about purple. This palette is, the purples in it are so wearable and so beautiful, and they're mixed with so many plums and pretty browns that you cannot help but like purple. And I have really been working on my purple aversion because I have green eyes, and purple is the color for green eyes, and this palette really changed how I feel about purple. I have to remind myself to stop wearing this one. Other palettes deserve love too. It's a hard one to put down. Let's look at it on the arm swatches. It looks like a few in. I left a little bit of a space in the swatching there. I don't know what I was thinking, so I'm sorry about that. Just ignore that. There's a little space there in the swatches, but there it is in all its beautiful purple glory. I don't even want to call it purple because it's kind of a put down. It's like plum. For my quad, as you know, Viseart just released 4 Petit Four palettes of quads. Oh, that was a tough one. I chose Praline. And I did go back and forth because Lila is gorgeous as well. But I chose a browner color since I had chosen the Violette. And this is Praline. And it is just a lovely, everyday, neutral palette, with just a little bit of kick to it. A little something special and unexpected. Here it is on my arm, swatched above Violette, since they are both Viseart. So you'll see Violette on the bottom, and then Praline up on the top there. And those are 2, they're such wearable, pretty, just really good palettes from a really good brand. That's Viseart, a really good brand, really good colors. Okay, here's another palette that you might disagree with me, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I chose it, and I'll tell you why some might disagree with me. I am going to include on this list the Naughty Nudes palette by Huda Beauty. Okay, let's look at it, and then we'll talk about why you might disagree and might agree. And let me tell you why I chose it. Here it is. First of all, feast your eyes on the beauty that is this palette, though my constant use and swatches have made it a little less pretty. I almost need to have 2 of these guys, one for using and one for showing, because it doesn't show as pretty as it used to. There's a lot of shades in this palette. Let's look at the arm swatch and then let's talk about it. Here it is on my arm. This is the Huda Beauty Naughty Nudes palette. I think that some of you might disagree, only because, yes, if you have a lot of Huda Beauty products, this is very similar to ones you already have if you are already a collector. There were also those who took issue with this slippery shade. It's actually called Slippery in the very bottom corner. I have it at the top. I reversed it because of the mirror. It's just kind of a slimy color there called Slippery, and I did leave that out of the swatches. If you go back to the swatches, you can almost see where I tried to put it in there, and it's more of a memorial slippery space and not really included. It doesn't really swatch. Here's why I get what the detractors say, but the reason I included it is that it's just a good palette. It is a workable palette. It is a pretty palette. It came out in 2020. The shades are smooth and pretty. There's a lot of choice, but it's not overwhelming. It's nudes, they're natural, you will always get a pretty look. To me, it really belonged on my list for 2020, though I do understand what the detractors will say. It's still a really, really good palette, guys. I think it deserves its place. Let's talk about Wayne Goss over at Beautylish. So Wayne released his first 2 eyeshadow palettes. And according to my rules, though I love them both, I had to choose one. I've actually been talking about choosing this one for a while. And when I first laid my eyes on it, I knew it would be on my list. And that is the very first one, Imperial Topaz. First, you got to open it up because sometimes Wayne Goss's palettes are hard to open. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So that's me going underneath here. Here is the Imperial Topaz palette from Wayne Goss. Look at you guys. It's beautiful. He's got the wide pan so you can get any brush in it and you won't hit pan before you hit pan on another part. He's got the liner, the black liner included in there. He's got the little sparkly ethereal shade in there. He's got everything you need for an everyday look or to spice it up. This palette is beautiful. It works well, it performs. Let's look at the swatches on my arm. Here is Wayne's Imperial Topaz palette. I also love the coordinating eye pencils that go with it. I am a fan as well of the blue themed palette that he did afterwards, but in choosing only one, according to my rules, Imperial Topaz won out. It is absolutely, in my opinion, gorgeous and usable. Love it. Should we talk about Charlotte Tilbury? Okay. When I looked, I chose 1 quad and 1 12 pan. And for the 12 pan, so you'll have to tell me if you agree, I was torn. I was like, is it Pillow Talk? Is it Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize? Is it? And then I knew I had to make sure I was well within 2020. And what won is the 12 pan Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize. Take a look at this, you guys. We have 4 3-pan looks in beautiful mattes and shimmer shades, plums, and kind of dreamy beiges and creams, and kind of off browns and taupes. It's the formula too. It's so creamy, so workable. They almost feel like a cream shadow. I don't know what this formula is, but it is marvelous. Take a look at it on my arm. You know, when the next palette we're going to talk about from Charlotte fits the same bill. When I was asked to do shade swatches and comparisons for folks looking, where to spend their money, I understand. It was hard to do because the shades in this palette you can get in other Charlotte Tilbury palettes. But it's the formula, it's the feel, it's the way it applies to the eyes. It's sensational. And the same goes to the quad that I chose. I bet you can guess. It's the Fire Rose quad, and I'll tell you why I just made an face. First of all, let's look at it. This one is almost untouched because the original sent to me was absolutely busted into a million pieces. And so I've been actually using this one to put on my eyes and swatching from the busted up one. Why not, right? I think I might have to throw it away. It's really a mess. But this is gorgeous. Again, same thing as the last. When the Fire Rose palette came out, I was doing a lot of swatch comparisons for people who assumed they had similar already. Because let's face it, Charlotte Tilbury does one thing really, really well, but she does do it over and over. And so, yes, there are a lot of similar shades, but there is nothing similar in formula. And as you probably know, this palette has introduced this shade, which is called the Super Pop shade. Look at that. And the Super Pop, oh, it's gorgeous. Let's look at it on the arm, because I just realized we haven't done that. And you'll see that Super Pop shade there. It is above the 12 pan Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize palette. So you'll see them both there on my arm. The reason I made a face, I went, this was limited edition. And none of us believe limited edition anymore. It's such a lie, isn't it? Until limited edition is actually limited edition. This little fella is gone. Something tells me it's going to come back. Let's keep a watch for it and I'll let you know. It's not here right now, so I'm really sorry to put it on the list. But the reason I was confident in putting on the list is A, I wanted it to be a real list of my favorites, and B, I bet you it'll come back. I can't, if there's money to be made, you really think, I mean, Pat McGrath has done it. We have seen limited edition palettes that are truly limited edition. It's just pretty darn rare these days, isn't it? Moving on to Natasha Denona. Boy, that was a tough one. She had a lot of good releases this year. She really did. She was also on my fails. So Natasha will redeem herself right now because I do absolutely love her makeup. And we're going to start with the larger of the two I was able to choose. And this is the Glam palette. Do you guys remember this one? Try, I dare you, to get an ugly look from this palette. Just try. Isn't it just gorgeous? Look at all those golds and kind of coppers and tawny browns and beautiful. Let's look at it on the arm and talk about it a little bit. Here is the arm swatch of the Natasha Denona Glam palette, or the arm swatches. You can see why I said I really injured myself with these swatches. I wanted to do nice new ones for you guys to see them all. The criticism of the Glam palette was that it was very similar looks. Okay. I mean, they're not similar enough. I got a lot of different looks out of this. Look at some of these really dark shades, and you can go all light. I just think it's incredibly wearable. And okay, maybe it wasn't wild. I get it. Sometimes people get these really big palettes and they want something really that gives them this ability to be wild and crazy. Kind of like with that Triachrome I was showing you from the Pat McGrath Divine Rose 2. So they want something like that in there. Okay, fair enough. But if we wear makeup to look pretty, this is a palette that will make you pretty, prettier than you already are, princesses. It is just gorgeous, and every shadow in here performs incredibly well. They're rich, they are smooth, they don't skip, they don't have any issues, they're absolutely beautiful. Now, in my rules, that meant I was allowed to choose a smaller Natasha Denona palette, and for that I chose the mini retro palette, and here it is right here. I don't have a mirror to worry about. This was just a really pretty combination of an easy to use pink with these lightly kind of greeny grays and creams, just enough lovely mattes and just enough really pretty sparkle. Here it is on the arm just above the Glam palette, so you can see them together. I just kept the brands together there. I chose the retro because I just think it was pretty and easy to use. The Zendo came out afterwards. I had no trouble with the Zendo, but a lot of people did. A lot of people felt that with the mini Zendo that came out afterwards, that some of the end shades were a little patchy or too similar, or they had issues with them. So though I did not have that issue, I haven't really recommended it because you guys are, you know, looking to me maybe to see what to purchase or where to spend your money. And if I do know that a lot of people have had trouble with something, then I will have trouble recommending it. So the mini retro has given no one that I know of any issues, and it is a beautiful, beautiful palette. So that is where I came up with that one. 2 more palettes to go, and the penultimate, or next to last, is from independent makeup brand Sydney Grace. This is all the way from the beginning of 2020, and it is the Enduring Love palette. This palette came in light and darker shades. I chose the lighter because of my skin tone, but they also made an absolutely gorgeous, slightly deeper version of this palette. Both are absolutely beautiful. Look at the depth of those colors. Let's take a look at this on my arm. If you haven't tried Sydney Grace before, you should know that this little brand does the most creamy, beautiful, deep, and rich shades. And the great thing about Enduring Love is the depth of color. I mean, you are not going to get the same look twice unless you dip into the same shades. It goes from purples to rich turquoises to golds and browns, creams and grays. And the other fun thing is, since it is called Enduring Love, it pays homage to some of the greatest loves around. So the names of the shades are Romeo and Juliet. We have Darcy, we have Victoria and Albert, we have, you know, and even, I believe 2 of the names in here are the parents of the creators. So, I mean, just absolutely beautiful. It pays homage to love, enduring love, and comes in lighter and deeper shades, which is really cool too. Some people just struggle with having shades show up on their lids, and Sydney Grace understands that. They're a really important brand to support. Mel Thompson did her beautiful palette with them as well, and that was kind of a runner-up on my list. But remember, I only got to pick one, so I picked Enduring Love. And last, but most certainly not least, Victoria Beckham Beauty. She came out with the Silk palette this year. I had to check because I thought, was that 2019? No, it was 2020. And here it is right here. This is the only eye palette she's come out with this year, but it was an easy one to pick. This is absolutely 100% gorgeous. Let's look at it on my arm and talk about it a little bit. This is about as everyday as you can get. Almost a no makeup look. Always pretty, just enough. They're kind of they're all kind of a satin shade, so it's not really shimmer or matte, but it applies almost like a matte with just a cream formula, and they are so wearable and so beautiful. Whether you have hooded eyes, whether you have non-hooded eyes, deep set, wide set eyes, anything you got, it's always going to be flattering, and it pairs so well with her kohl pencils. Just absolutely a beautiful eye palette. And I think it's about time for Victoria Beckham Beauty to be releasing another. It's been a while. We've seen lip products and whatnot. We've seen some facial products, but I would like to get back to these eye bricks because she does them very, very well. That is my list. What's on your list of the best eyeshadows for 2020? Do you disagree with any of my choices? Would you have switched something out? And did I leave any brand out that you think should have been in there? I would love to hear your opinion, princesses. So let me know below. There are also shopping links below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And if you have not already done so, I would certainly appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel. I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.